Hi, in this video, just want to discuss the latest technology when it comes to controlling background noise. Now, most hearing aids work reasonably well when you're in a quiet environment. If you're talking to someone one-on-one and it's a fairly quiet room, most people with the hearing aids are quite happy, they get a good outcome. However, where we tend to find most people will struggle is when they're in an environment where, let's say, a noisy restaurant, they're trying to have a conversation, 2 or 3 people talking and there's another 100 people in the room. So that's normally the most challenging environment. That's the situation where most hearing aids don't work all that well. And so what I'd like to do is just give you a brief understanding of the technology and the components in today's modern hearing aids that enable the hearing aids to control the background noise. Now, I'm giving you a very simplified overview of how these types of technology work. So it's probably a little oversimplified, but it will give you a nice, clear understanding of how they work. So the manufacturers have different levels of technology. So you take a particular product and it's available in 5 different levels. The physical product is exactly the same. The features or the software is very different in each one. And the software normally relates to the ability of the hearing aid to reduce the background noise. So what I'll do is I'll give you an understanding of how a simple hearing aid works from the base level, and then we'll discuss how we start to add different features and how the addition of those features gives a better outcome to how clearly you're going to hear in those demanding situations. So the most important thing, we need 2 things in a hearing aid that are going to give you really good or maximize the benefit you're going to get in a noisy environment. So the 2 components a hearing aid must have is the hearing aid must have 2 microphones and the hearing aid's got to be wireless. And the other thing, which is not so much to do with the hearing aid, but you need 2 hearing aids today in order to get the best outcomes. So let's discuss the difference between having 1 microphone and having 2 microphones in the hearing aid. So firstly, if the hearing aid has 1 microphone, we say the hearing aid is omnidirectional. That means the hearing aid picks up sound from all around you. So again, if you're in a noisy restaurant, all the people talking and the piano playing or whatever it happens to be over at the side and behind, the hearing aid's picking everything up. Now in a quiet environment, or if you're walking in the street and you want to hear traffic, that's good. You want it to be like that. But if you're trying to focus on hearing somebody talk in a noisy room, and that person that you're talking to is normally in front of you, you want a hearing aid to pick up the sound in front, and you don't want all of that additional background noise that's distracting you. And so the way in which a hearing aid can do that is to have 2 microphones. So with 1, it's omnidirectional. With 2 now, the hearing aid can pick up the sound that's in front. And to take that technology even further, now that hearing aids are wireless, the fact that the hearing aids can talk to each other now greatly enhances the functionality. So if I have 2 microphones in this hearing aid and 2 in this, I now have 4. With 4 microphones, instead of creating a beam, a wide beam in front, I can create a really narrow beam. So now I can really focus on the person that I'm looking at. So it sort of gives me this tunnel vision, and that works well. That certainly is a method to be able to reduce the background noise. Again, we need a hearing aid with 2 microphones. They got to be wireless, and we need the 2 hearing aids because they've got to talk to each other. Now, the next thing a hearing aid is able to do is actually be able to localize and work out where a sound is coming from. So if there's a sound over here on my right, it will arrive at the right hearing aid before the sound arrives at the left hearing aid. The sound will also be a little louder on this side than it will here. Now, this is what our brain does naturally to be able to locate where a sound comes from. Hearing aids now are starting to emulate what our brain does. And so the hearing aid, by being able to compare these differences, is able to locate where a sound comes from. Now, if a hearing aid can create a directional fine beam using the 2 microphones or the 4 microphones talking together, and the hearing aid knows where the sound is coming from, the hearing aid can steer that beam onto the sound. Now, if the hearing aid can determine what that sound is, it can do this by analyzing the sound and looking for one of three different patterns. So it can find a pattern or a modulation that will tell the hearing aid that the sound is speech or music or just noise. So if the hearing aid knows that that sound is speech, it knows what the sound is, and it can steer a narrow beam onto that sound, then you can see, without you even having to turn your head and look towards the person that you're wanting to talk to, the hearing aid can do that for you. And then the next step above that is to have a hearing aid with multiple beams focusing on the dominant speech sources closest to you. Now, Phonak, for instance, have brought out an incredible little device recently called the Roger Select. And you put this on a little round disc that you can place on the table in front of you. Now, this has got 6 super directional microphones built into it. And its goal is basically to focus on whoever is talking close to you. And it does this exceptionally well. Now, that is a much larger device with 6 mics. But today's modern hearing aids are doing something similar, not quite as well as the little round desk mic, but nonetheless, much, much better than any other technology. Now, the other reason why we fit at Pub Hearing only the top-end hearing aids is because this technology, typically with all the manufacturers, they reserve that to their top-end products. So as soon as you go from the top of the range hearing aid, they then start to take away features. And they typically do that quite savagely. So by the time you get down to your mid-range and your low end, all of this, what we call spatial processing, hearing aids just don't do that. And therefore you don't get all the benefit of the latest technology. So you'll get a hearing aid that still has the same chip. It may have similar connectivity. It'll look the same, but it can't perform the same. And so in a noisy environment, you are going to be highly disadvantaged in a noisy environment if you don't go for the top of the range hearing aids.